বন্ধুগণ নমস্কার। এই মুহূর্তে ইটি নিউজ যেটা দেখাচ্ছে সেটা হচ্ছে টাইমস নেটওয়ার্ক যে পেন্টাগন একটা প্রেস ব্রিফিং করছে কিভাবে তারা হচ্ছে ইরানের মধ্যে যুদ্ধটা পরিচালনা করছে। আপনারা এটা একটু শুনুন, তারপর আমি বলছি ওরা কি বলতে চাইছে।
And their weapon systems are ready to go. These airplanes are so big that they're not in hangars. They're out in the cold, out in the snow, out in the rain. The bombs are being built outside for protection and to make sure that it's safe, and they do it 24/7, 365. It's not comfortable work, but when you go spend just a minute with these incredibly young Americans who are so motivated, you cannot come away from that exchange not being hopeful for America's future. It is simply awesome. And we hand these Americans, young Americans, incredible and weighty responsibility, and they deliver every single time. Quietly, with professionalism and humility, doing the things that we ask them to do. In conclusion, we will continue major combat operations. As the Secretary said, we continue to get busier. I know the Secretary and I share that we're incredibly proud of 2.8 million members of our joint force. I am personally, and we are personally grateful for the tenacity and professionalism of the brave men and women who serve inside STRATCOM, CENTCOM, SPACECOM, CYBERCOM, TRANSCOM, and the rest of the joint force. And I'll close where I started. I ask today that we remember those 6 fallen that came home. They represent the best of our nation. For those families that are feeling the pain, know that we are with you and will remain with you. May we always prove worthy of their sacrifice, and I'll turn it back over to you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll take a couple questions.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Given the updated degradation and strike target numbers you laid out, how close would you say we are towards achieving the President's objectives, and what is the end game of the operation without divulging any sensitive battle plans?
Well, we wouldn't want to set a definitive time frame on that, but as we've said, we're on plan. So we're looking at those metrics very closely, relaying that to the President and the National Security team, but feel confident that again, we're more stand in means we're over the top, even further in, and we have even more of an exact sense of what we're striking and why, and even more dynamically, meaning because the intelligence improves, we're able to more quickly identify targets when let's say they come out of an underground facility where they've been hiding, and able to strike it before it strikes or right after it shoots. But we're very much on plan, and that's why I want to speak to the American people here. You hear a lot of noise about widening or new missions or speculation about what we should or should not be doing. This is a clear set of objectives. The President has given us every capability we need to accomplish that. We've got the best in the world in uniform executing it on the ground. They believe in and are invested in this mission, and it will be at the President's choosing, ultimately, where we say, hey, we've achieved what we need to on behalf of the American people to ensure our security. So no time set on that, but we're very much on track. Absolutely. Yes, right here.
Good morning, Mr. Secretary. David Zier, Real America's Voice News. What countries have been the most cooperative with us, including the Gulf states as Europe hedges? And I also wanted to ask you, the internet blackouts by the regime, it's been shut down for weeks. Is the U.S. military playing a role in fighting against the regime, blocking VPN networks and satellites and other things? Is there a role for the U.S. military there?
Obviously, on the allies and partners side, Israel from day one has been an incredible and capable partner, willing and able. There's nothing like capabilities and partners that are able to use them. The Gulf states have stepped up incredibly. In fact, Iran's sort of reckless attempt to strike civilian infrastructure and other things has brought countries who maybe would have not been as all in as they are today squarely into our orbit. And we're proud to be defending with them, standing with them, you name it. UAE, Qatar, Bahrain, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, and others who have been right there. And we're grateful for that kind of support. As far as the internet, we're watching the regime try to tighten its grip as much as possible. And we're obviously taking countermeasures, many of which we can't talk about here, to ensure that messaging is delivered, not just to the Iranian people writ large, but to the right audiences, certain audiences that need to hear certain things about what their fate might look like or what their choices are. So even though that regime is trying really hard to ensure the world can't see, right? They want they want to put out fake AI-generated images, which, by the way, sometimes our press happens to fall for, like the Abraham Lincoln on fire and turning around. These AI-generated images are meant to make it look like something's happening when the exact opposite is. So they make up fake reports and fake images to lie to their own people to try to make it. But even then, their own people can barely receive a lot of those messages and communicate because of the blackout that they've imposed upon them. But we work around that for sure.
ইরান নাকি ফেক ভিডিও
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. General, overnight, Iran launched missiles across the Gulf. They managed to hit the Saudi oil refinery on the Red Sea. What does it mean that they have that capability now, 3 weeks into the war? And Mr. Secretary, you mentioned civilian infrastructure. Iran seems to be treating U.S. diplomatic outposts, embassies, consulates like they are legitimate hard targets in the region now. What is the Pentagon doing to, I guess, secure those assets, stop those attacks?
Absolutely.
সিভিলিয়ান ইনফ্রাস্ট্রাকচার যেখানে
As we said,
ইরান বোম ফেলছে তাকে রক্ষা করার জন্য কি করা
they
হবে?
came into this fight with a lot of weapons. This is why we continue to be as aggressive and assertive as we can against their ballistic missile capability, both their medium-range ballistic missile capability
military general.
and their short-range missile capabilities. So we are continuing to hunt and find them and kill them, and we will continue to do so. So they still retain some capability.
আমরা ইরানের
And
মিলিটারি
we have layered defenses
যে আছে
throughout the
সেগুলো
region
খোঁজার
that
চেষ্টা
will
করছি এবং
allow us
তাদেরকে
to protect those, and we're working with our partners across the Gulf region to help them improve any defensive capabilities that they may need.
To that point on capabilities, Iran's an energy-rich country, could be, should be. Instead, like so many other places driven by radical ideology, they've spent that money instead of investing in their people. And that's why you had millions of Iranians protesting, because they felt like their condition quality of life didn't match what it could be or should
Secretary of
be.
War.
And what was the Iranian state? There's a reason we call Iran the #1 state sponsor of terrorism, because they took the money they make and they invest it in tunnels, and they invested in missiles, and they invested in launchers and UAVs, and we are destroying and degrading that in historic proportions. But it doesn't mean
তেল বিক্রি করে ইরান যা যা করেছে মিসাইল বাংকার সব আমরা একটা একটা করে ধ্বংস করছি
we're fighting every single day to continue to compel. And you mentioned embassies and consulates. Unlike previous administrations, we are doubling and tripling down on ensuring that our people, regardless of their Department of War, Department of State, whatever they do,
বাইডেন অ্যাডমিনিস্ট্রেশন আগের প্রশাসনকে দোষারোপ করছে ডেমোক্র্যাটদের প্রশাসনকে
is a good offense, and so we're not afraid to go after and kill anybody, and we have a lot of them attempting to target our diplomatic facilities. Iran, we're not
Body language দেখে মনে হচ্ছে খুব ভয় আছে
indiscriminately target, and we're still seeing that. Jerry.
As part of the justification for the war against Iran, the White House has laid out in fairly comprehensive fashion that the Iranian regime's 47 years of terrorism aimed at the U.S., including pointing to the IRGC's provision of weapons and EFPs to help kill Americans in Iraq. The Pentagon in 2019 assessed Iran was responsible for the deaths of at least 603 service members in Iraq, but there hasn't been a similar public accounting by Iran's role helping the Taliban in Afghanistan. And that also hasn't been part of the White House's public argument. I was wondering if you could speak to Iran's role in helping the Taliban during the war in Afghanistan. And Chairman,
ইরান আপনার সাথে তালিবানকে সাহায্য
the
করছে
Secretary eloquently spoke about 13 U.S. service members have been killed so far during Operation Epic Fury. I was wondering what lessons have been learned from those deaths, both from Iranian strikes, from an aircraft refueling accident. How are those lessons being applied to the current conflict, and how are those lessons going to be applied to a potential conflict in Indo-Pacific?
Thank you.
Well, thank you for the question, and it's true. In a town that can have a very short memory, President Trump does not. He remembers what this Iranian regime was founded on, what their declaration has been from the beginning: death to America, death to Israel. They've stated that. They've intended to, in every way, try to accomplish that, killing Americans in any theater they can, embassies for quite a long time. In Iraq, that was the deadliest weapon, was the EFP, the explosively formed penetrator.
ইরান কোন সময় বলছে ডেথ টু আমেরিকা ডেথ টু ইসরায়েল সেই কথা আবার রিপিট
The
করছে
realization was it wasn't just jihadis putting together 155 rounds daisy chained. It was an entire state, a country with its apparatus able to mold steel in a way that was specifically designed to penetrate American armor and kill Americans. This was not, oh, maybe we send them a couple of thoughts about how to build a bomb. This was Iran specifically passing technology and wherewithal and personnel into Iraq to kill Americans specifically. I know the number is said to be 600. A lot of us think it's higher than that, given the amount of capability they brought in. So they have been at war with us, whether we acknowledge it or not, for 47 years. The same goes in Afghanistan. Name the Islamist enemy, whether they are Sunni or Shia, because this is a Shia regime, Sunni or Shia, and Iran's been willing to harbor them as long as that group is willing to try to kill Americans. So the enemy of their enemy has been their friend as well in the Islamist world. So Iran, whether it's Iraq, whether it's Afghanistan, whether it's around the world, has been targeting Americans. And what they wanted in this context, and what President Trump would not tolerate, is a regime of that nature being closer and closer to nuclear capabilities, a capability they would have said they would want to use, and we ought to believe what our enemies say they would do if they got the most dangerous weapon in the world.
ইরানকে আমরা কোনোভাবে নিউক্লিয়ার বম বানাতে দেব না।
To America, and sometimes we have to remind folks of that, but thank goodness we have a commander-in-chief who, on behalf of this country, has internalized that and said, hey, we're going to do something about it.
Chair, I do want to talk about the lessons learned question because it's important to me. I won't share particular tactical lessons, and the KC-135 incident is under investigation, but I do want to talk about how I think about this and how we think about it, and this is something that I'm pretty passionate about. I believe the Joint Force has to be a very fast learning organization, early, often, and always. And so in each case, both at the strategic, operational, and tactical level, we've charged the Joint Force to look at themselves and say, what was our plan? Well, first, did we have a plan, yes or no? The answer is always yes, because we plan for literally everything. Did we execute our plan, yes or no? If we did it work? If not, why not? If we didn't execute our plan but did something better, what's the lesson learned associated with that? And then how do we quickly capture those lessons after every
আমরা কি শিক্ষা নিয়েছি সেটা এখন আমরা পরিষ্কার করে বলবো না, তবে আমরা ডেফিনেটলি যুদ্ধ থেকে অনেক শিক্ষা নিয়েছি।
And then share them across the entirety of the Joint Force. And inside the Joint Staff, we've tasked our J7 Directorate under the lead of Lieutenant General Lazewski, a United States Marine, to be extremely entrepreneurial in harvesting and capturing those lessons in a proactive and not reactive way. In fact, we've got teammates from the J7 who are now spread out across the CENTCOM theater, both here in the States and forward, to ensure that in every opportunity we do not miss a chance to grab that lesson and quickly accelerate it into the practice that we adopt inside the Joint Force, so that if there's something that we learn it not only in the CENTCOM AOR, but we adapt it across all of the combatant commands, not just Indo-PACOM. And it's across all of the warfighting functions. I've asked them to look rigorously, to check our egos at the door, to remember this is about what's right, not who's right, and to be clinical around the way we look at lessons learned, because we owe it to the force to do that. Thanks for that question.
Absolutely. Brown jacket, flag draped caskets, we honored them. We grieved with their families, and we listened.
যারা মারা গেছে তাদের পরিবারের প্রতি আমরা সমবেদনা জানাচ্ছি।
Tears, through hugs, through strength, and through unbreakable resolve was the same from family after family. They said, finish this. Honor their sacrifice. Do not waver. Do not stop.
আমেরিকার 13 জন সৈন্য মারা গেছে যুদ্ধে পর্যন্ত এবং বহুজন
My response along with that, the president was
হয়েছে।
of course we will finish this. We will honor their sacrifice. Their sacrifice only steals our commitment. I wear this bracelet. Staff Sergeant Jorge Oliveira, he was one of my sergeants, or one of my specialists in Guantanamo Bay. He deployed later to Afghanistan, where he was killed on 19 October 2011. Killed 10 years after 9/11, 15 years ago. He was one of the 1%, the best of America. Not just a guardsman, but a law enforcement officer back home and a family man. I remember him every day, just like so many other men and women of our generation and previous generations who wear bracelets like this. Just as we will always remember those lost in this conflict, their names are now etched into our mission
যারা
and
মারা
into
গেছে
the
তাদের
soul
নাম আমরা জেনেছি।
of a grateful nation. I stand here today speaking to you, the American people, not through filters, not through reporters, not through cable news spin. A dishonest and anti-Trump press will stop at nothing, we know this at this point, to downplay progress, amplify every cost, and call into question every step. Sadly, TDS is in their DNA. They want President Trump to fail. But you, the American people, know better. Yes, there are reporters in front of me, but they are not our audience today. It's you, the good, decent, patriotic American people. You, the hardworking, tax-paying, God-fearing American patriots. The media here, not all of it, but much of it, wants you to think, just 19 days into this conflict, that we're somehow spinning toward an endless abyss, or a forever war, or a quagmire. Nothing could be further from the truth. Hear it from me, one of hundreds of thousands who fought in Iraq and Afghanistan, who watched previous foolish politicians like Bush, Obama, and Biden squander American credibility. This is not those wars.
তো বিষয়টা হচ্ছে যে পিটে হেগসেথ তিনি হচ্ছে কি যে বলছেন আর কি যে আগের অ্যাডমিনিস্ট্রেশন কী কী করেছিল, আমরা এখন কী করছি, এবং এই যুদ্ধ আমরা যেভাবে হোক জিতবই, এবং আমরা তার জন্য যাবতীয় যা প্রয়োজনীয় সেগুলো আমরা করছি। এবং মিলিটারি জেনারেলও সঙ্গে আছেন, তাকেও সাংবাদিকরা প্রশ্ন করছে এবং তিনিও যাবতীয় প্রশ্নের উত্তর দিচ্ছেন এবং তার সঙ্গে কিছু কিছু ব্যাখ্যাও দিচ্ছেন। তো এই প্রেস কনফারেন্স হয়তো এখন 1 ঘন্টা ধরে চলবে। তো 1 ঘন্টা ধরে প্রেস কনফারেন্স শোনার আমাদের কোনো প্রয়োজন নেই, কিন্তু আমেরিকা আগামী দিনে কী কী পদক্ষেপ নিতে চলেছে সেটার জন্য আমাদের এগুলো জানাও দরকার। তবে ইরানের সঙ্গে যুদ্ধে যে আমেরিকা এক পা এগোচ্ছে, 2 পা পিছোচ্ছে এবং ভয়ে ভয়ে আছে, এটা কিন্তু প্রমাণিত হয়ে গেছে। যতই বলুন যে এআই ফেক ভিডিও ছড়াচ্ছে, কিন্তু অনেক সত্যি ভিডিও যারা ইন্ডিপেন্ডেন্ট জার্নালিস্ট তুলছে তারাও কিন্তু পাঠাচ্ছে। সেখানে দেখা যাচ্ছে আমেরিকা এবং তার যে অ্যালিজ, বিশেষত কুয়েত, কাতার, ইউএই, আবুধাবি, ওমান, এদের কিন্তু ভয়ানকভাবে লস হচ্ছে এবং তাদের উপর বম বর্ষণ হচ্ছে এবং তারা এখান থেকে কিছুতে বেরিয়ে উঠতে পারছে না। যদি ইদানিংকাল দেখা যাচ্ছে যে এই যে দেশগুলো প্রায় সৌদি আরব থেকে শুরু করে ইউএই, কাতার, কুয়েত, ওমান, বাহারিন সবাই কিন্তু একজোট হয়ে এখন বলছে যে না ঠিক আছে, আমরা প্রয়োজনের পর এনাফ ইজ এনাফ, আমরাও হয়তো এই ইরানের বিরুদ্ধে যুদ্ধে নামবো। কারণ এখন দেখা যাচ্ছে যুদ্ধটা আমেরিকা ইসরায়েলের সঙ্গে ইরানের হলেও কিন্তু পরোক্ষ যুদ্ধটা এখন এই মিডল ইস্ট কান্ট্রির সঙ্গে কিন্তু ইরানের একরকম শুরু হয়ে গেছে। ফলে মিডল ইস্ট কান্ট্রি ভয়ানকভাবে আশঙ্কিত, ভীত এবং রাগান্বিত, এবং আমেরিকার বেশ থাকা সত্ত্বেও তারা যে নিরাপদ নয় সেটা তাদের কাছে এই মুহূর্তে প্রমাণ হয়ে গেছে। ফলে আগামী দিনে তারা নতুন করে ভাবতে শুরু করছে। আবার এর মধ্যে যে খবর আসছে সেটা হচ্ছে যে চায়না নাকি বেশ কিছু অস্ত্রশস্ত্র পাঠিয়েছে ইরানকে সাহায্য করার জন্য, এবং রাশিয়াও নাকি ইন্টেলিজেন্স ইনপুট দিয়ে চায়নাকে ইরানকে সাহায্য করছে। ফলে যুদ্ধটা এখন একটা দুটো ভাগে ভাগ হয়ে গেছে। একদিকে আমেরিকা, ইসরায়েল এবং এই সমস্ত দেশগুলো, এই যে আরব কান্ট্রির দেশগুলো, আর অন্যদিকে হচ্ছে কি যে ইরানকে সমর্থন করেছে 2 বৃহৎ শক্তি রাশিয়া এবং চায়না। এবং এর মধ্যে আছে ইউরোপিয়ান ইউনিয়নের বেশ কিছু দেশও আমেরিকার সঙ্গে বিট্রে করছে, যেমন স্পেন পরিষ্কার বলেছে আমার আকাশসীমা আমেরিকা লঙ্ঘন করতে পারবে না। ইতালি বলেছে আমরা এই যুদ্ধ অবতীর্ণ হব না। যেভাবে কেস্টামারকে মক করেছিলেন, অর্থাৎ উপহাস করেছিলেন ডোনাল্ড ট্রাম্প, কেস্টামার তার উপহারটা আজকে আবার ফেরত দিয়েছেন একটা ছোট্ট হচ্ছে যে প্রেস ব্রিফিং দিয়ে। তো আমরা আগামী দিনে আরও এরকম এই যুদ্ধের কেন্দ্রে বহু রকম উঠাপড়া আমরা দেখতে পাবো। ইউরোপিয়ান দেশগুলোর যে নাটক সেটাও আমরা আগামী দিনে অনেক বেশি দেখতে এবং শুনতে পারবো। যাই হোক, আপনারা সবাই ভালো থাকবেন। ধন্যবাদ।